talking about a topic today that is close to my heart. It is definitely something that I've had to work on for myself at different levels, and it's something that I see that shows up with a lot of my clients, and it is concealed shame. Now, concealed shame could be the thing that's in the way for your next business level up. And so this is what I'm going to be talking about today. So I want you to think about this for yourself. Have you got a business where you've done the work on yourself, you've done work in learning your craft, you've built out programs, you've got services to offer, and you've really built something incredible that people need, and you've probably got clients who say they love working with you and they get great results and all those kinds of things, and you're very capable, you're capable of doing the work, and you can almost feel or see that that next level of business success is right there. The more income, the more clients, the more visibility, the flow, the ease, all of that stuff. You can feel it, you can taste it, but it still feels like there's something in the way. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because there's these old patterns that are running in the background. And this has nothing to do with strategy. I bet $1 million that you know how to do the things and what you're meant to be doing, but it's something to do with emotional safety. There's this kind of stickiness that stops you from going ahead or really feeling completely aligned and congruent with having what it is that you say that you want. And so this hidden pattern is what I'm talking about today, concealed shame. And I'm calling it concealed shame because this is something that often people don't actually realize it's there. If I were to ask you, do you feel shame? You might say no. But it may well be the residue that's left behind from growing up without full emotional validation. So concealed shame doesn't always come from really obvious trauma. And in fact, so many of my clients, so definitely I've got clients that are very well aware that there was some kind of trauma or abuse in their background, right? They know it, and we've done work on that. But then there are some other clients that I have who are pretty sure that their childhood was good because they had food on the table, they had a roof over their heads, they had parents who cared, they got the things, they could go on the school trips, or they played the sports or whatever, but there might have been something critical that was missing. For example, maybe if you were upset or crying, you got sent to your room and told to not come out until you could be in a better place. You might have been told that you need to calm down and to go away until you could calm yourself down. So you might have got in trouble for being emotional. It might have been a case of you weren't allowed to get angry, or if you were crying, that you were going to get something to cry about, or to just be quiet, pipe down, all these kinds of things that really give you the message when you're a child that your emotions and your needs don't matter. But it's very, very subtle. You might also have learned that it was your job to make sure your parents weren't upset, because if they were, they'd blame you for how they felt. Now, this is a really interesting one, because this is something I've heard time and time again from clients of mine who say, oh, my poor parents this, or my poor parents that, that they had to look after me, or they were so upset about something that I did. And none of this is to blame your parents, by the way, but it's for you to get awareness that there's probably a lot of stuff that you're carrying that was never yours to carry. And in fact, it was that you had clients, that you had parents, I should say. Your parents may need to be my clients. You had parents who weren't able to take full responsibility for their own emotions. And they certainly didn't know to help you, to show you or help you how to take responsibility for your own emotions, or how to process them, or how to feel safe in those. You might not have been allowed to have emotions of your own at all. And so as a result, your emotions might not have been seen, they might not have been named, they probably definitely weren't validated. And because children are so hardwired for belonging, we tend to learn to adapt, to be easy, to be capable, to be independent, or to be invisible and not cause any problem. Because if you don't do those things, then there might be a threat that you'll lose connection, that your parents might have got upset at you, or they might have withdrawn from you, and that as a child feels like you're losing connection. So if you think about it in another context as well, this is one that often people, it really gives them an aha moment, and that is if something ever happened to you as a child and you didn't tell your parents about it. This might be something that really upset you at school. It might be something that happened to you. It might have been a time you were really scared. If something happened and you didn't tell anybody, you certainly didn't tell your parents about it, then this is a real indicator that you didn't feel emotionally safe. And if you aren't sure about that, I want you to think about it this way. If you had a child of your own and they had themselves in a situation which was really unsafe, and they felt really unsafe or scared or sad or upset or depressed, and they couldn't tell you about it, how would you feel? I know for me, if there was something terrible happening for my daughter and she had to, I found out later that she suffered alone because she didn't feel like she could tell me, I'd be devastated. And you know, there's probably have been things that have happened in the past that maybe she hasn't told me, and like now I fully see it as my job to be like, you can tell me anything. And in fact, she teases me and she says, but Mum, what if I did this and what if I did that? And I'm like, well, we would just deal with it, right? So you really want to think about it in that way. If there is stuff that happened to you as a child and you're dismissing it as, you know, your poor parents had to put up with you, or you were a bad child, or whatever, and these are things that happened when you were under the age of 16, even under the age of 18, I want you to be really aware that you were a child and it was your parents' responsibility to guide you and to support you and to help you in that space. And so if you didn't feel like you could go to them, then that is a definite sign that there was some form of emotional neglect that was happening there, where you did not feel safe. And this all adds to this concealed shame. It's this absence of safety. It's quietly what shapes how you feel, or how safe you feel in adulthood as well. And so if we fast forward that then to where you are now in your life, and you have a business and you've created this amazing business, and it's a business that most likely helps people in some way, that early childhood wiring doesn't just disappear. And in fact, it will probably show up with force where it might not have been such a big deal for you before, because business will definitely bring a lot of your stuff to the surface. And it can show up in all kinds of ways. So concealed shame may show up for you in business by ways of where you hesitate to share your message fully in case someone disagrees with you. You might be undercharging or apologizing for your prices because you don't want to upset anyone. You might be saying yes to things when you want to say no, and then feeling really drained. You might be over delivering to prove your value. You might be craving having bigger visibility, or, you know, wanting to get the views and the likes and the engagement on your posts, but you feel really, really exposed when people actually start watching. These aren't strategy problems. None of these are problems that a different strategy or the latest technique is going to change in your business. They're emotional safety problems, and they come from a nervous system that still equates being seen or taking up space with the risk of rejection or blame. So concealed shame is the invisible identity pattern that really says, I'm only lovable when I'm useful or agreeable or perfect. And it's what drives high achievers to do more instead of receiving more. Right? That's a key aspect. If you're driven to do more rather than receive more, that is something that is a tip off. It's what fuels imposter syndrome in people who are really good at what they do. And it's what keeps income and impact and influence from expanding. It keeps it tempered down because deep down, success might feel like real exposure to you. It might feel like it's going to open you up to judgment or people disconnecting from you. And when your emotions were invalidated when you were growing up, your nervous system learned that being too expressive or too opinionated or too visible could cost you connection. So even as an adult, when opportunity calls, a part of you might still be like flinching or holding back or like, tensing up. You might be holding your breath. And there's that constant, background whisper, don't get it wrong, don't upset anyone, don't be too much, don't make mistakes. Right? That's concealed shame. And it's often the reason that very, very capable business owners plateau or feel like it's really hard to get to that next level, because next level of business will always be an increase in visibility. If you've got more income coming in, I can guarantee it's because you've got more clients. That means more people are seeing you. More people you feel like are perceiving you. They're judging you. They've got some kind of opinion on you. And if that hasn't felt safe, then you will avoid that. So this is how this pattern can influence your results. So under that old survival rule, it might have been wired into your system that I've got to try and keep everyone happy. And so what this shows up as in your business is you might become a people pleaser, right? You're always trying to please your clients. You might avoid boundaries, and then that just leads to burnout. The other old survival rule you might have is don't be too emotional. And so then how that shows up in your business is you detach from your actual message, and it loses its magnetism because you'll be avoiding sounding too polarizing. You'll become too vanilla, right? For fear that if I put too much emotion in it, if I'm too passionate about something, someone's going to shoot me down. Another old survivor rule you might have is that I have to earn love and success. And so then how does that show up in your business? Well, it could be that you're overworking, that you're undercharging, and that you really struggle to take a break. Right? I see that happen for people. Another old survivor rule might be where you feel like if you're visible that you will be judged or humiliated. And so in business, that shows up as you trying to stay safe all the time, trying to stay small and not being seen, not standing out by the people who need you the most. And this is the thing that really gets people going, oh, I just need a new strategy. I just need a new strategy. But it's not your strategy that's the problem. It's your internal permission to be fully seen that's been limited. And because business can only expand to the level that your nervous system feels safe in receiving, then it will continue to show up until you resolve that within yourself. And to resolve it, you have to get awareness. So this is why I'm really hoping that what I've shared with you so far is starting to resonate as something like, oh, that maybe that is something that I've experienced for myself. Now, really important to note, none of this is for the purpose of blaming your parents, right? Your parents are your parents. They're doing the best that they can with the capacity that they have. But if you've got a business, you're an adult, and that means you need to reparent yourself, but you also need to be able to know the difference between your parents doing the best that they could and the reality of what it is that you deserved as a child, as a human being. They are not the same thing. And so often people get caught up with, oh, but my parent, you don't understand, they were a struggling single parent, or they were doing the best, or they'd immigrated, or they were working really hard. And all of that stuff might be true, does not mean that you didn't need more, that you didn't deserve more. And so we have to be able to separate these things so that we can give it to ourselves. Because ultimately, this is the whole idea of when we have parents. It's not that our parents are going to give us what we need for the rest of our lives, but they're going to show us how to give it to ourselves. If they haven't been able to do that for you, then you need to be able to do it for yourself. Okay, you need to reparent yourself. So, but that's the good news, because you can rebuild emotional safety within yourself. And when you do, everything changes. You can stop hustling for worthiness. This is a big one. I used to be so busy in my business. I was running network meetings, I was doing all these trainings, I was having clients, I was running programs. There was so much going on. And it wasn't making my results better, it was just keeping me busier. And so I had to shift all of that, which I did. I've dropped away a lot of things that I was doing, and amazingly, I made myself half as busy as I was before, and it didn't affect my revenue in my business, right? This is really key. Doing more does not equate to receiving more. So what else will change? Well, you stop leaking energy into overgiving and over-explaining. If you're overgiving and over-explaining, it doesn't make people respect you more. And probably it makes people respect you less, right? Because you're not holding your own boundaries. When you build this emotional safety within yourself, then you can start moving with clarity and a sense of calmness. You can actually let your nervous system rest. And this is a really important thing, because whenever people talk about, I want to have more money in itself doesn't do anything for you. What you're actually after is a sense of relief. If you have more money, that means you can have a sense of relief because you know that you're looked after. That's what we really want, is that feeling of relief. However, you have to first give yourself permission to feel the relief, to feel the calm, that you put boundaries around yourself of where you're protecting your energy, of what's okay for you. That's what you have to be able to do. And this is what emotional safety and emotional healing allows you to do. And then when you create that calm and that peace for yourself, that's when your business naturally expands. It happens all of the time. And in fact, I've been having conversations just today, actually, with people who were, the lady who was sitting next to me, she was saying about how, she was on leave and she created this space, and then suddenly these opportunities started dropping in for her because she gave herself that space. It's a really important thing to do. The other thing that happens when you have created that emotional safety for yourself is that you can raise your prices without feeling guilty, because you value what you do. You know the impact that your work has. You can speak your truth without rehearsing it for approval, without thinking about over and over and over in your mind of, how do I have to say this the exact right way so as not to upset anyone? You can then take much bigger, bolder, and aligned actions because you trust yourself to handle whatever comes back. You stop taking responsibility for how everybody else feels. This was another conversation I had recently at another women's event, and we're talking about, if I say this or I share this of my story, will there be people who get triggered by it? Other people's triggers aren't your responsibility. Your truth is your truth. You don't have to hide it so that somebody else doesn't get triggered. You don't have to hide it so somebody else doesn't feel upset. It's your truth. This is the reality of your life and how you feel and what's happened for you. Other people have got to take responsibility if they're involved in that, for their part in it, right? It's up to them how they deal with that. Now, once we move into this space, of course, we're still going to be moral and ethical and considerate of other people. We don't need to go around attacking other people or anything like that. We're just sharing our own truth. But when we feel safe to do that and we accept that we're allowed to take up space, when we accept that we're allowed to be who we are, even if the reality of what we say, what we think, or what we feel makes somebody else feels uncomfortable, and we realize that that's their responsibility to take over that, how they feel, not ours, then we create this level of safety where more money flows in. Your visibility grows. More people get to see you and hear you and experience you, and your presence magnetizes the right types of opportunities. Not because you're forcing things, but because your system now believes it's safe to receive. And this is where things get really exciting, and we move into that place of feeling like we can move with ease and grace and having fun, and that we are supported. Right? This is what happens when that concealed shame no longer is running the show. Your energy, your leadership, and your business all can then start operating from truth instead of from a place of protection. And so this kind of transformation rarely happens on its own. I mean, it can, absolutely it can. Any type of transformation you have can happen on of its own accord through you living your life. But often these things like concealed shame live in your blind spots. And it's woven through your habits and your beliefs and your nervous system. And it can be hard to clearly see it yourself when you're inside it. When you haven't experienced something outside of what that is, it can seem normal. It's like a fish in water, right? The fish isn't necessarily aware of the water. And this is why working with a really skilled coach who can help you identify where these patterns might be showing up in your business. And a coach who really understands that both the structure of your business and the psychology beneath it can help you to untangle those emotional threads, and in a way that you can't do with strategy alone. Right? When you do that type of inner work, everything on the outside starts to flow. And clients will feel a shift in your energy, but it's really important that when you're dealing with something like this, you want to have someone who understands it in that context. Okay, so one of the things that I am really good at is understanding how these patterns show up for people in business, around visibility, around money, around feeling safe in that business. Because I love business and I understand that, but because as well, I've worked through this stuff myself. It's stuff I've had to unpack for myself and resolve for myself. I've seen these results for myself, and I've also worked with hundreds of people in all different levels of business, from people in startup through to people doing 7 and 8 figure revenues in their business. I see these patterns show up, and I'm very good at understanding the structure and linking it to what's gone on in childhood in ways that they probably haven't been aware of themselves. Because like I said, we're so in this space of like, I had a pretty good childhood. And I'm not saying that your childhood was bad, but there can still be things that were missing that will show up in your business. And this is why I always say business is one of the perfect places for personal development, because it will bring up whatever it is that you've got unresolved. Business is a very personal journey. So if you know that you are ready for your next level and you're ready for more clients to be coming in, for sales to feel a lot more at ease, and for there to be a lot more flow of income, and for you to be more visible in your business, all of that requires this next level of emotional safety, the higher income, the calm confidence, the greater visibility. That is what I help people with. So if you sense that there is something that is holding you back, this might be what it is. And it's not because you're broken. It's not because you're just one of those people who are not meant to succeed. It's just that there is things that have happened in your childhood, in your life, that are wired into your nervous system that just need to be unwrapped so you can create that safety for yourself. And when you do, you have such a big impact on, it's not just your business, it's not just you, but all of the people around you. I'm so, I so believe that we're all here to evolve and that we're all interconnected. So your evolution will help people you don't even realize. This is the power of doing this type of work for yourself. And of course, in business, it means when you evolve, you can help more people, which is still going to have a greater impact on the world as well. That's why you started doing what it is that you do. But we move into this place of alignment and confidence and genuine self trust because, like I said, your business isn't just a reflection of what you do, it's a reflection of how safe you feel to be truly you, your amazing self. Now, I recorded a masterclass last week called The Quantum Code, where I went into quantum principles and how this affects our growth in business as well. And these two are very intertwined because it's one thing being aware of this concealed shame and how that shows up and where it comes from. And we can do work on that, but at the same time, we also need to do the energetic work of understanding quantum principles and understanding how we're creating our reality and how we can create the reality where we are feeling safe in our business, where we are doing the work at the level we want to be doing, earning that kind of money, because we need to be able to put our focus in there. Resolving old stuff from your past frees up energy, and when you have that excess energy, you need to be able to channel that into what it is that you're creating. It's not just, oh, I'll just fix stuff from my past and everything will work out roses. It will go a long way, but you need to know how to redirect that energy into creating what it is that you actually want. So the recording for that is available. Check in the show notes, the Quantum Code Masterclass. Go and watch that because this will add on to what I've just been speaking about with concealed shame as well, to really shift what you're thinking and how you're feeling in your business so that you can step on in to that next level in your business. I'd love to know your thoughts about this. What is it that hit home for you? And share it with somebody who you know this would really help, because we're all here walking each other home.